Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week we are finishing my Regency ball gown. I am 100% determined we are gonna make this happen. If you have been watching these videos, you will know that this project has been taking way too long because I haven't had a lot of sewing time. And of course, because I completely overcomplicated this project because I am me. And so today we are going to be particularly focusing on our super overcomplicated sleeves. Now, I did start these sleeves in the last video. If you haven't seen that video, in that video you will find a French seam tutorial where I go over how to do a French seam on the lower sheer part of the sleeves. And I also mocked up the upper portion of the sleeve, which is a very, very weird shape. It honestly looks like some sort of a dinosaur or elephant or something like that. It looks like this. Yeah, so this is our upper sleeve shape. Everything has been cut out now, and it is time to assemble this. So the first thing that we are going to be doing is we are going to be applying the piping to all of these little zigzags in here. I guess they're not zigzags, all these little weird arcs. Yeah, we're going to be applying the piping to all of those. Now, I'm not continuing the piping around the edges here because this is going to get incorporated into a band of some sort, but we have all of the piping here. Hopefully this is enough because I've made so much piping for this dress at this point. If you missed the video with the piping tutorial, that was 2 videos ago. I will link these videos down in the description in case you did miss them. But yeah, we went over a piping tutorial 2 weeks ago for how to make all of this piping. But yeah, we're going to apply the piping to one side of this, and then we're going to sandwich that inside another side. So basically each of these sleeves has 2 layers that are cut exactly the same, and the piping is going to be sandwiched in the inside, and everything's then going to be turned right sides out. And at that point, I will then connect the top edge of these sleeves together. Right now, we're just focusing on all the little ins and outs of all of these. So that is the first step of this, and then we're going to figure out how to incorporate the scrunched up organza. By the way, since I know that I haven't shown you a picture this video, if you haven't seen the last couple videos, this is the sleeve we're making right here, or just about. I'm not probably doing those tabby bits that hang past the sleeve band because I'm just not a big fan of those, but otherwise this is the sleeve that we're doing. So yeah, once again, I have picked a way overcomplicated project here because it's what I do. I'm going to go ahead and sew all of this piping on, and I will show you that process as we go and as we sandwich that between the 2 layers. So the first step, as you can see here, was applying the piping to these 4 U's, for lack of a better term. And the next step is going to be taking the inner layer, basically the lining layer, which does look the same as the outer, but taking that and then sandwiching the piping. So I'm going to pin this in place around all of these little strips and just make sure that it's a complete match to the other side, and then sew again over those spots. And I'm going to do that from this side so that I can match my stitch line directly on top of the initial stitch line. It's always easier to sew from the side that you've already done piping on whenever you are working with piping. Once I do that, then I'm going to attempt to connect each of the edges separately. So like this edge over here to this side over here, and likewise the other side, which would kind of work the opposite. It would like go under. And I'm doing it in this order because I think it's going to be a lot easier to put the lining layer on when it is flat in all of this little fussy area, and then do that as opposed to make it a complete circle first and then try to match everything when it's not actually flat. And the reason that these parts have to be connected to each other is because I haven't yet put the piping on this part right here. So once the sleeve ends are connected, then I'm going to put the piping there and add the interior to the exterior, etc. So yeah, that's kind of the order. It's a little bit of a funky order, but hopefully everything's going to work out. As you can see here, it is now all sandwiched together. The piping is inside all of this, and I've also gone and I've clipped all of my corners, and I clipped a lot because it's really tight in these corners, but it will kind of splay outwards, so you don't really need to clip little wedges into them like you would a reverse curve. So now we should be able to turn these right side out. You may want to use some sort of a turning tool for this to help you. But yeah, we turn them right sides out. There we go. You can see that finished one. And then we are going to press all of these strips. And then we can do the joining together of the edges like I mentioned previously. This is a pretty great turning tool for this, by the way, because it's got this like silicone rubbery grip. So it almost acts like a finger as you're pushing it through. And then it's got this really pointy end. If I can find the name of this, I will link this down below in the description. I don't tend to use this one a lot, mostly because for long tubes, I always use my fast turn tubes turner set, which these are like the best. You really need these. They're so good. And then also if it's like poking through a corner, I usually use a tool like this because this is not so sharp that you will easily poke through a corner, whereas this little curvy thing is. Like this would poke right through fabric, so you got to be careful with something like that. This is a much more gentle tool. It's just a little bit too on the wide side to turn these, so in this case this is a great tool for that. So this is what it looks like with them all pressed. And now we are going to go ahead and join those edges together. So like I was saying before, we can join it like this and then join the opposite side like that. So it's going to kind of be a little bit funky, but it should work out just fine. So this is what the sleeves look like now with that inner seam put together. So you can see it looks kind of funky, a little bit like some sort of a squid. But yeah, so now the thing is going to be to add the piping to this area right here, which is the underarm area, but like the bottom part of the sleeve, and I'm honestly not positive if this is going to work. So what we are going to try is to put piping right sides together here with this kind of turned inside out so that I can then again sandwich it to over here. So kind of turn that, I cannot do this with one hand, but turn it so that both sides face. I just am not 100% positive if I can then turn that back right side out. So I'm going to test that and let you know. Okay, the seam has been sewn. Let's see if it can be turned inside out. I think it can. I'm pretty sure that I'm not crazy and that this actually does work because we can access it right here. That's not a problem. And right here. So let's see if we can now make that the edge, which I'm pretty sure can happen. Yes, we did it. Okay, so that is how you do that. You just sandwich it like around the rest of the sleeve, and that works great. So I'm going to press that, and then I'm going to pin the top edges of this together, and I'm just going to serge this edge right here because this is going into the arm side. Don't need to worry about that. I do still have to figure out how the band works, and I have to figure out how the ruched up organza works behind this. But the outer portion of the upper portion of the sleeve is basically complete. So we'll figure out the rest of this in a moment. The tops are serged, and I've also added gathering stitches around the top to fit them into the arm's eye. So now we can figure out the organza ruched up bit and the band. I'm making the band for the bottom of the upper sleeve right now. This is a 19-inch long strip by 1.5 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put piping along the bottom edge in the sandwich method like I did previously with the sleeve. Then I'm going to close the ends together, and I'm going to leave the top edge open for now. It will get pressed down and it will get either top stitched or whip stitched in place, but inside the sandwich of two of these strips will go the bottom of the vertical strips plus the bottom edge of the organza scrunchy part. And that way this finished band will only be about 1/2 inch wide plus the width of the piping, like a, I don't know, 1/4 inch or whatever. So it'll be very narrow and it will just go along the bottom, closing everything off. So this is what the first step looks like, or really steps 1 and 2, with the piping sandwiched between the two bands. I did, before I even added the piping in, I did press this edge up on both of these just so it was easier to do when flat. Now I'm going to press again by folding it like this so that the piping's nice and on the edge. I'm going to try not to press that line out, but I'm going to press right here on the edge of both, and then I'm going to open it back up and join the edges together, right sides together here, so that it becomes a circle. And this is what the bands look like all finished up with the piping on the bottom edge. And this top part is just pinned, so it's ready to get all of the vertical bands put into it. But for now, it's just pinned closed so that I could press it nice and flat. So yeah, those are our two bands, and now let's figure out the ruched up organza part. But first, let's actually talk about what I've done with the undersleeve. So I've run gathering stitches up around the top of the sleeve. Haven't pulled those up yet, but those will just be pulled up to fit the arm's eye. Down at the bottom of the sleeve, I've applied 2 bands of lace. And this is lace that is already slightly gathered up at the top of its own top, and I applied it first to literally the very edge, right over the serged edge of the lace. So this is what it looks like from the inside. You can see the serged edge is literally right there under the thicker part of the lace so that you don't see the serging from the outside. Then I applied another strip of the lace just above that so that they would kind of lay nicely on top of each other like so, and I've just done both of these with straight stitches. Then I ran gathering stitches, one basically on top of where I stitched this one down, and then another gathering stitch right kind of in between the 2 bands of lace. You can see this stitch right here. And when that is pulled up, it looks like this. Ta-da! So this is basically pulled up to fit over my hand so that I can slide my hand through. So it's not quite as small as my wrist, just because I need to get my hand through and I don't want to have any actual closure. Then I'm going to take probably another tiny strip of organza and stitch that to the inside, and that's going to be fitted to size. And that's what I'm going to stitch the gathered area to, so that it has something fitted on the inside that still looks sheer. So I'll probably just take a very small, like 1-inch wide little strip of organza that is the circumference of my hand and stitch that in so that's all held in place. And that is basically what the sleeve looks like there. So this is the little 1-inch strip that's going to become the inner wristband, and here it is pressed in place. So I'm just going to join the ends together and whip stitch this in place by hand on both of the inside wrists of the sleeves. So I unfortunately have to kind of interrupt this video with some just very sad and awful news, which you will already know if you follow me on Instagram. But a couple days ago, Lion actually wound up crossing the Rainbow Bridge. If you haven't been kind of following what's been going on with him, he did have a tumor removed back in, I think it was April, and at that time they found another tumor. Like after they closed him back up, they found in the x-rays that he had a tumor on his lungs. So he had been doing chemo, various types of chemo, over the last several months. But about a month ago, the doctor determined that none of the chemos that he had tried had been working, and there really wasn't anything else left to try, except like an experimental type treatment. And so we made the decision to stop the chemo. She estimated that he had like 3 to 6 months left to live, that he would start showing issues and signs at about 3 months, and that he maybe could last up to 6 months. Unfortunately, just this last Friday, which is about a month after that diagnosis, he started coughing. And he was having a bunch of coughing fits throughout the weekend. And then on Monday, he had multiple times throughout the day where he was not breathing. Like he was really, really struggling to breathe and just searching for his breath like so hard. And he was really like scared. And I could tell that that was just not good for him. And so at about midnight, a little after midnight, after the 3rd time of having one of these issues that had been going on for over a half hour at that point. The first one was very long. The first one was like 50 minutes long, where he was trying to find his breath, and then he seemed better. And then later in the evening, he had another shorter one, like 10 to 15 minutes. And then not too long after that was this other one that at this time it was like 30 minutes. And he just looked so scared, and I couldn't let him keep trying to find that breath. I had already brought him to his regular vet that morning because of the coughing, and the vet said, look, he's having difficulty breathing. He's like using his stomach to help him breathe, as opposed to just his lungs working normally. And that was before he had had the actual like issues where he couldn't find his breath. So I had to make the really difficult decision to bring him in to his like emergency vet. And I held him next to me and petted him as I said goodbye. And it still feels like he's here, like, he was such a quiet and chill dog that, like, it just feels like he's here because it's not like he would bark a whole lot or whatever. So it's kind of the littler things of, like, you know, realizing that I have to pick up the food that I drop on the floor, or just like turning around, sitting at my desk at work, and he's not behind me or under my feet, which is where he normally was when I was working. So it's just been a struggle. Maisie has been so good to me. She has, like, I mean, she knew that something was wrong when he was struggling to breathe. She was kind of getting all up next to him, trying to figure out what was going on. And she has just, like, in the last few days, honestly, chilled out so much and been so loving. And I'm sure she's confused about where he is too. But I've just been, like, really, really thankful to have her here, to provide that support for me. And yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get another dog for a while, because Lion was just such a good chill dog, and most dogs aren't that chill, and I feel like that's what I needed in my life. So yeah, that's the sad news. I'm obviously, like, adjusting to all of it, but, you know, I have to kind of go on with everything. Like, we had our second weekend of shows start last night. I've been working pretty much like normal at my regular job, etc. And I intend to spend the next couple of hours here sewing and see how much I can actually get done. I am concerned that I'm not gonna actually finish this after all this week, but we'll see. So I'm very sorry for probably potentially making some of you cry or making you feel very upset. But yeah, that's what's going on this week. And now let's go back to this project. So my plan for the scrunched up part of the organza sleeves is actually to cut the sleeve pattern. Like, this is the same sleeve pattern. This is just the short sleeve version from this Laughing Moon pattern that I've been using this whole time. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to lengthen it probably just as kind of as wide as I can with as much dyed organza as I have left, which isn't a ton. I do not have a ton of the dyed organza left, but I have this much kind of weird shape pieces. And I should be able to get kind of 2 lengthened sleeve pieces out of that, because then what I intend to do is underneath where the strips are coming down from, like, the outer fabric, I intend to do vertical gathers in this. That way it will just kind of scrunch itself, ruche itself up like that, and then I will kind of delicately stitch it in place with those vertical pieces and with the little band cuff that I created a few days ago. And hopefully that will work and we can assemble it all together and the sleeves will finally be done. And then I just have to attach the skirt and do the hem. So that part's not a big deal. It's these freaking sleeves. So let's go cut all this out. So what you're looking at here is the upside down shape. This is the bottom part of the sleeve up here. And I've laid out this pattern piece on top of it so that I could make marks of where it would line up under these. So I've made like little dash marks and I'm going to connect them with the dash marks here and make a long vertical line on each side and then run gathering stitches there. And then I should be able to just put this together otherwise like a normal sleeve. So here are my puffy little sleeve parts. I again did French seams on the like actual seam of the sleeve, and then I've got my 5 strips of gathering that are vertical, and then I also have gathering around the bottom, and although I have gathering stitches around the top, I haven't pulled those up yet, but that will be fitted into the arm size. So it just looks kind of silly little puffy, I don't know, like one of those kind of ugly curtains, you know, where it's pulled up everywhere. But yeah, hopefully this is gonna work. I'm going to try and kind of like fit these into the arm size now and just see how it all comes together. So a couple things. I just have this kind of pinned together, these 2 layers at this point, and then I just have an anchor pin in the shoulder. But I do think that I made my strips too long, so I've kind of moved them down a little bit further here because looking at like the actual, you know, extant sleeve, I just feel like the proportion isn't quite there. And I'm honestly wondering if the shoulder portion is also too long. But I think what I'm going to have to do is kind of take these two layers together, put them into the armscye, and then zhuzh more, and then also see if I need to shorten these even further, see what this would look like in the band, because at this point I don't know if we're gathered too much for the band or not enough for the band, and maybe kind of pin in the undersleeves too to see how this is sitting over everything. But yeah, it's definitely looking weird, and it's like it's not staying up. Like, I mean, obviously they're only pinned up here and then down here, but I feel like this needs to kind of be up there, and whether that's a couple tacking stitches that I'll need to do kind of in this area or in this area or both, that might be the case. But yeah, I have to examine that a little bit further. So unfortunately, that is all the sewing time for today. We'll see if I get anything more on this week, but ugh, this project is a nightmare. Don't make this dress. I don't know what I was thinking. What was I thinking? This is stupid. I'm sick of this project, but I'm determined to finish it. So there we are. Well, with everything that happened earlier this week, I don't think I showed you what the bands look like sewn to the inside of the wrists. So this is the inside. You can see my little whip stitches. And then for the outside, it just looks like that. So yeah, the sleeve, the lower sleeve parts, those have been finished. But we do need to try and set things into the armscye now. So I have set the outer two layers of the first sleeve into the armscye, and I still have this bit pinned a little past where it goes. I also just kind of like moved this part over so that the gathering stitches were right on the edge of this as opposed to centered, which is where I had them before. I did the same thing on the back one over here, and I do feel like that kind of gave it a better shape overall. So I am definitely going to cut this shorter. It's these 3 tabs right here that need to get shortened by about, what is that, like an inch-ish, maybe just under an inch. These ones are fine. These are the length that they ought to be. Like, I don't need to shorten them any. And as you can see, I do have the lower sleeve just literally 1 pin stuck into the shoulder in place, but just to see them together, I also kind of tried to open this up a little so that it is approximately the size of the band that it will go into. And I think that that's looking a lot better. I also did some pins around here where there's going to be tacks. So I found that like this one needs a tack kind of midway through. The rest of them just seem to need the tacks up at the top, though I might wind up adding tacks onto the other 2 right here as well midway through. We'll see. But yeah, so I need to chop off the bottoms, and then I can attach the band in there, and then I can just do the tacks probably like tomorrow at the shows or whatever. But yeah, actually I guess it's coming together after all, because I do think that that looks pretty nice, and we're still missing the little band there, but I think that'll add a lot as well. All of the sleeve layers are now set in the armscye, and the band is all pinned in place. I think it is actually looking really good, so now I'm feeling a little bit more confident about this project. This, I think, is all going to be hand sewn in place, and I have a 2-show day tomorrow, so I am going to bring this bodice with me and do all of this hand sewing at the show. And then at that point, the only thing left to do will be to add the skirt to the waistband and also add the hooks and bars in the back. Actually, I might bring those with me tomorrow too, just to see how much I can get done. But yeah, that is it. So we're getting close, guys. We're getting close. We might actually finish. Well, I got most of the hand sewing that I wanted to done today during the 2 shows. So all of the hand sewing on the sleeves is now done. You can see all of my little kind of, it's a combination of whip stitches in these areas and then sort of like a prick whip stitch, something like that. I honestly don't know what that would be called, but I was trying to catch both edges. So you can see the prick stitch kind of on this side, but it looks more like a whip stitch on this side. So that's all done. And then I also did a bunch of tacking stitches that are through the inside, both on the strips, on the backing of the strips, and then also a lot of the areas up at the top, like you can see right up there. So yeah, that is all done. I did manage to get 2 hooks on the back, but I ran out of time to do the rest of the hooks. So I might work a little bit more on that tonight before I go to bed, and or the other option would be to actually attach the skirt and put it on despite the lack of hooks, which would be the problem there, and hem, like mark the hem, because if I mark the hem, then I could bring the whole thing to the show tomorrow. I only have 1 show, but I could bring the whole thing and then I could start on the hem. But I think what's gonna happen is I'm gonna do the rest of the hooks probably tomorrow at the show and then try it on when I get back. I've got a chat with my patrons tomorrow after the show. Hopefully I can mark the hem before that chat and then sew the hem during that chat, and then I would be done and that would be perfect. So yeah, I do like it. I think it's really cute. I don't care that that looks kind of like a menorah. Hopefully it will look really cute on. Hopefully the sleeves work on, because, you know, I haven't tried any of this on since I was putting on all these sleeves, but I really like the look of them. I think they look really nice. So yeah, there we are. That's what it looks like. I put the hooks and bars on during today's show, so let's go ahead and attach this to the skirt and try it on. All right, I have the dress on. I can't quite do up the hooks that are in the back, so I'll just have to mark the hem without having those done up, but I will go ahead and mark the hem. I think the sleeves are looking good. Obviously I need to fix my chemise, but yeah, I'm happy with how the sleeves look, so let's take care of this hem. Let's talk about my overall thoughts on this dress. Honestly, overall, I am happy with how it turned out, and I don't really think that I would change anything. The one thing that I'm wondering about, and I can't get a good look at because it's really behind me, is the very last strip over here. If it's actually too long. Do you see how it's kind of wrinkling up a little bit there? But you know what? That is such a tiny little small thing, and again, it's behind me, so it's really not something that I think about because it's not really something that I see unless I'm scrutinizing like a picture, you know, of here. So yeah, no big deal. And the other thing that I thought that I had wanted to change, which was kind of like the width of the menorah boob window, as I'm now thinking of it, I actually think that I got it. So I think it's just a matter of like proportion and seeing it on and seeing it with everything else. Like it looked really small before I added the sleeves. Once I added the sleeves, then you get just a very small gap over here pretty much like the width of one of these strips between the boob window and between where the sleeves start. And so actually I think that the proportion on that wound up working correctly. So I'm really glad that I didn't change anything there. I guess my one regret would have been like to do these narrower and not wind up with a perfect menorah. But now that I've done it, you know what? It's done. Some of you saw it before I said it. Others of you saw it after I said it and now probably can't unsee it. But yeah, this is, I guess, all holiday dress, or we could even just go so far as to say it's a Hanukkah dress, because I think that Hanukkah will have ended by the time 12th night happens. That's too bad. It's close because Hanukkah is so late this year that I think it only ends a couple days before the 12th night dance. Honestly, I have to look it up because it's really close. Oh, it ends just before the dance. The last night of Hanukkah is Thursday and the ball is on Saturday, so it's so close. But yeah, we'll just say that this is a Regency Hanukkah dress because, let's face it, it was never a Regency Christmas dress. These are not Christmas colors, anything like that. This was very much like a dress for the 12th night ball. And I'm excited to potentially add more to it next year too, to do like trim around the bottom. At this point, I now don't know whether I would want more of a banded trim or more of the rouleau or maybe something entirely different, but I think that it's a good way that I could continue adding to this dress and have it grow and develop over the coming years, because let's face it, I'm probably going to put this into rotation for this 12th night ball, potentially along with my older dress, because now I have two Regency ball gowns and I go to one Regency ball every year and I don't want to keep making new Regency ball gowns. So yeah, I also am really glad that I went with the long sleeves. In all of my polls, like at the beginning of starting this project, you all said to scrap those long sleeves, and I'm sorry, but you guys were wrong. I love the long sleeves. I think they're so cute. I love this trend that came in the 1820s and stayed through a lot of the 1830s for these random sheer organza sleeves. I think they are silly and cute and floofy, and I am here for anything silly, cute, and floofy. So yeah, I really love the long sleeves. I also love the color combo that I went with the deep purple fabric with like the pink silk satin trim. I think that the pink looks really beautiful on here. I also love using fabrics that are left over from other projects. You know, it's terrible to waste, especially such a nice fabric, and honestly it feels like so nice. This is such a good fabric. If you happen to find yourself in the LA fabric district, I know that they still sell this, and it's that double-sided silk satin, and it's usually way cheap, which is crazy in the LA fabric district, and I highly recommend you pick some up. It doesn't come in a lot of colorways, but it's such a lovely, like, soft, just really scrumptious fabric to work with, other than the fact that it frays like crazy and rolls up on the edges. So yeah, I'm really excited to wear this to the ball coming up in just a couple of weeks here. I am looking forward to this ball. I mean, frankly, like, how do you not look forward to a ball? I wish there were more of them from more eras, especially not just Regency. And you're probably going to hear a bell through a lot of this because Macy's got a hold of one of her toys and she refuses to ignore it. So if you hear a bell ringing, an angel is getting its wings and my cat is playing with a toy. But yeah, I think that's honestly all that I really have to say on this anyway. I guess my one concern, which I will have to see after the ball or at the ball, is if I might have hemmed it just half an inch too long. So we'll see. Hopefully I won't be tripping on it. It doesn't touch the floor, but it is just slightly long for dancing. Like, it's how I would normally hem a Regency dress, but I do worry slightly about the dancing. I think that with the structure of the skirt, because it is lined with that cotton organdy, I think that I will be okay because it doesn't kind of get trapped into my feet. It kind of stands out a little bit, gives me that nice 1820s silhouette, but we'll see if it becomes a trip hazard once I start trying to dance. So yeah, that's going to be it for me for this video and for this project. If you like this video and this project as a whole, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, usually with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays, and sometimes additional costuming or sewing related content out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing and happy holidays!